Vanakkam. Does or doesn't Sri Narendra Modi, the Honorable Prime Minister of India, deserve our gratitude for bringing this futile, potentially very dangerous Indo-Pak conflict to a speedy end? Very many conflicting opinions are being aired on this subject, and therefore I thought I would offer my two penny worth of wisdom in this regard. The first thing I want to say is that the contents of this video are sure to disappoint those who are out for some cheap excitement or fun at the expense of others. It's likely to make sense, if at all, only to those who are inclined to think soberly. By thinking soberly, I mean thinking about situations in a state of social and psychological equivalence or equilibrium. That is to say, advocating something, identifying oneself with the likely victims of what one advocates. It's very easy to be a warmongerer, simply because one is safe in one's house. One can read about the various happenings in the theater of war where soldiers die or get maimed, and one is absolutely safe. And therefore, war becomes some kind of terrible entertainment. To such people, my line of thinking is bound to be very, very disappointing, in fact, vexatious, and therefore they're advised to not proceed any further. You can leave right away. Speaking for myself, I feel after a day or two of thoughts and reflection, I feel grateful to Narendra Modi for accepting the ceasefire proposal between India and Pakistan. What is my reason for it? The reason is very simple. A war between these two nuclear powers is not a winnable war. The maximum it can do is to generate or manufacture large-scale misery, which is bound to be to nobody's gain or advantage. India might be able, because of our larger size, larger army, larger arsenal, might be able to inflict greater destruction on Pakistan. But we too are bound to suffer, and suffer enormously, for the reason that modern warfare is conducted not exactly on the strength of the number of soldiers that you have, not even on the strength of the quantity of arms you have. The decisive factor in modern warfare is the quality and sophistication of the technology used. And the interesting thing about technology is that even a small country with a small army, with a small national wealth, GDP, can aspire to hold off a mighty nation for a long period of time. In fact, this is a message brought to us very clearly by the Russia-Ukraine war. And much before this, Vietnam proved it. Thereafter, the Taliban in Afghanistan proved it, so on and so forth. So when technology is involved, it is not necessary that the mightiest of the powers prevail. It is not necessary that a power immensely unequal to the other is assured of victory. At any rate, there is no guarantee that you will not suffer serious and crippling damages. Beyond all this, War paralyzes the life of a nation. And the more it continues, the more damage it causes. So, from every point of view, war is not a winnable uh, or a gainsome undertaking. To win the war is also to lose it. It is possible to generate a lot of emotions in this regard. You can use propaganda to that effect. You can talk about war most heroically because of some political calculations. But when you get into the messy, bloody affair of waging a war, it strikes you as an entirely different experience altogether. Now, that is true even about a single murder. Shakespeare's play Macbeth is an unforgettable illustration of this principle. There, the main character, Macbeth, because of his ambition, decides to kill his king Duncan in order to become the king. It's a single murder. And the way Macbeth experiences the potential murder of Duncan is nothing compared to his actual experience of murdering Duncan and the way he disintegrates under the burden of guilt thereafter. So Shakespeare is making this very important principle or idea that how you experience something before it actually takes place, or how something seems to you while you're only contemplating it, is quite different from how the situation or the event will hit you once it happens. It's very easy to get excited about the prospect of war, to become very jingoistic and patriotic about it, and to forecast one's inevitable victory and the complete destruction of the enemy, so on and so forth. But all this is because we have no experience of war. And the so-called self-styled patriots who now are spewing venom against the prime minister really have no experience of war. And quite unfortunately, many of these voices are from his own camp, who feel that the prime minister should not have stopped until Pakistan was crushed under the iron heels of India. Now, this is completely unrealistic thinking. It shows a total betrayal of the very logic of dealing with international relations, particularly in a context of unprecedented sophistication and scale of destruction in waging war. So, I quite agree with the Prime Minister's commonsensical assessment and conclusion that waging a war with Pakistan is not a desirable option at all. I quite agree with him in this respect as well, that after the Pahalgam attack of the 22nd of last month, something had to be done. And I have said this previously also. Something had to be done. But calibrating that action with two completely contrary considerations in mind. On the one hand, the need to appease the national psyche and to apply balm to the hurt minds, particularly of the relatives of the ones who have lost their lives in this dastardly deed. And on the other hand, making sure that the situation does not spin out of control into a nuclear holocaust. You have to be in a position of responsibility to understand how difficult it is to walk this tightrope. Those who are sitting in their chairs, those who are far away from what it means to handle a situation, potentially explosive situation like this, can say what they want. But if you are in the seat of responsibility for making decisions that will affect the destiny of millions and millions of people, then the whole scenario looks very different. So I quite agree that something had to be done. And I also agree that getting into an all-out war with Pakistan was not the thing to be done. And I think Prime Minister Modi has steered clear of both. He has resorted to a very carefully calibrated action by way of doing justice to the victims, which again is a dubious concept because I don't know how justice can be done to a family that has lost its breadwinner, how justice can be done to a woman who has lost her husband, or a son who has lost his father, or a daughter who has lost his father, so on and so forth. I don't understand these concepts at all. But let's say, using common parlance, justice has been done. But beyond that, venturing any further would be uh, a piece of madness. Now, the main factor here, of course, is the nuclear weapon. As the Pakistani politicians, as well as the Pakistani cabinet members, have been saying repeatedly in the last couple of weeks, Pakistan has not invested so much money into making these nuclear arms just for uh, fun or to keep them there as ornaments. They're meant to be used. And in times of utter desperation, nuclear arms will be used. Now, you can always discredit that possibility by saying that this is bluff. But I'm not quite happy to buy that argument. I quite reckon the possibility that when a nation finds itself in an extreme existential crisis, it would come to a conclusion that desperate situations warrant desperate remedies. And therefore, the possibility of the unthinkable happening cannot be discounted. It's foolhardy to discount such a possibility. After all, we are familiar with many instances in which people who otherwise would have behaved normally indulge in murder because they feel that the situation has been rendered so desperate, so untenable, so unendurable, that it's impossible for them to live or survive, and therefore let them depart, taking a few people with them. This is the way the human mind thinks in times of desperation. So, driving a country which is in a state of serious internal disarray, plagued by economic chaos on the one hand, civil tensions and movements of secession, the prospect of the nation being fragmented on the other, political instability being another. So Pakistan is in a terrible state. It's not in a position to take a great deal more of tension. It's already on the brink. So I fully agree with the assessment of the Prime Minister that it's quite foolish, it's cruel, as well as dangerous to push a country in this state of extreme desperation any further than it has already done to itself. And therefore, there is no sense, there is no wisdom, there's no sanity in pushing this country any further. Now, the important question I want to raise with you is this. Is this a sign of weakness or is it a sign of maturity? Some of the ultra-nationals in the Hindutva camp are out to decry the Prime Minister as a coward, which is very, very regrettable. I would like to believe that this is a sign of maturity. This is a sign of mature realism. It's not an easy thing to decide to risk the lives of 1.4 billion people. India, the Indian subcontinent, cannot afford to have a nuclear war. Both countries are more or less matched in their nuclear arsenal. Maybe we have 4 or 5 bombs more. But given the potential for destruction that an atom bomb holds today as compared to the small bombs that fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it doesn't take even 50% of Pakistan's nuclear arsenal to destroy the whole of India. It doesn't take even 20% of India's nuclear arsenal to destroy the whole of Pakistan. This is the doctrine of mutually assured destruction, or MAD. So, is it a sign of wisdom or is it a sign of foolishness and cowardice that the Prime Minister chooses not to be mad or not to embrace or take the option of MAD, the MAD option, mutually assured destruction option? I, for one, feel personally very grateful to him for not dragging India along that line of self-destruction. I think he has handled the situation as effectively and as wisely as can be done in the present situation, where, fortunately or unfortunately, India is in no position to act entirely on its own. A third party involvement was already a fait accompli. So, given all of that, given the fact also, something that I've been saying for years, given also the fact that as Indians, we are in no hurry to do justice to the true genius of India. Why is it that India has not developed, in my opinion, even 10% of our potential? It's very easy to be jingoistic and patriotic, but it's very difficult to work and produce, to grow and develop. Why are we so abjectly dependent on other countries? So it's very easy to thump one's chest and say we must defeat Pakistan, we must not rest until Pakistan is brought to its knees, etc., etc. But a man in a seat of authority has to think not 10 times, think 100 times. And on available evidence, the Prime Minister of India, Narendra Modi, has thought 100 times, maybe 120 times, and come to the mature conclusion that it's irresponsible to push the destiny of India over the edge, and that there is no gain in it, absolutely no gain in it. And the statement that he made in an emotive sweep, that he will not rest until not only the terrorists but also their abettors are punished in an exemplary manner, he would have come to realize by now is impractical, because something that has emerged very clearly by now is that there is absolutely no discontinuity, no distinction between the terrorist outfits in Pakistan and the Pak army. One is the replica of the other, one is the arm of the other. And therefore, the goal of eradicating terrorism by eliminating all terrorists is an utterly unrealistic, impracticable goal. This clarity has dawned on the Prime Minister, it has dawned on all of us. And to take on the Pakistani army to the extent of bringing them on their knees, make them confess their crimes of the past, and force them to commit, to eliminating all terrorist outfits from Pakistan is a completely unrealistic goal. And if people are not convinced, perhaps Prime Minister Modi should do this. He should take leave from his office for 3 months and hand over all the charge to some of these invincible forces who alone know what is good for the destiny of India, and ask them to handle the show. Then they will know what it means to handle the situation. I'm totally convinced today that what Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, has done is the only thing that could have been done. And he has done the maximum that could have been done. Nothing more can be done. Nothing more should be done. What needs to be done and what can be done, though it looks the long shot and the more difficult task, is to create an atmosphere of amity and cooperation between India and Pakistan. For 8 decades, we have worked very hard to create this culture of hatred. The amount of work done in this direction is humongous. We have not stirred a little finger to create goodwill between the two nations. Well, occasional attempts have been made, but they are nothing compared to the spewing of hatred between these two countries. It is possible to create a bridge of understanding and brotherhood between the two countries. If armed conflict is not the way to resolve this miserable state, and this miserable state cannot be endured any further, which I believe is the case, then we are left with only one option, and that's the option of peace, amity, cooperation, and brotherly neighborhood. And I think the attempts to be done henceforth, the campaigns to be undertaken henceforth, must all be of this kind: hatred, war, destruction. This is not the way to peace. Absolutely not. If peace is our goal, this is not the way. Peace has to be achieved through some other way. And it's not that we do not know what that way is, but unfortunately, because of the vanity that we have embraced, we think that it's humiliating for us to talk about the way of brotherhood, the way of mutual acceptance, the way of forgiveness, the way of mutual love, caring and sharing, etc. We think that's not very macho. We think that giving a bloody nose to everyone alone is the right thing to do. This is a form of madness. And this present scenario has amply proved that this approach has absolutely no future. This is not the solution, this is the problem itself. Therefore, the only thing to do in the days ahead is to accept a course, tremendous, huge course correction. Realize that the path we have trodden so far is not the path. There is some other way. And that the way was shown by Buddha, that way was shown by Lord Ram, that way was shown by Jesus Christ, that way was chosen by the spiritual luminaries of India, that way is clearly illumined by Hinduism, the philosophy of Advaita. You and I, imagine a Hindutva preacher standing on the border, line of control, and preaching to Pakistan, Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, I am you, you are me, and both you and me, we are part of Brahma. Today, people think that Brahma is such a small place or space that there is no accommodation. There is an accommodation problem. Only a small group of people can find accommodation. It's a Christian fallacy, actually. According to Christian thinking, there is space in heaven only for 144,000 people. So that's why Christians are very insecure. If everybody goes to heaven, then I'll be in trouble because there'll be an accommodation problem. Heaven can accommodate only 144,000 people. So what will I do? So Hindus also, I don't know if they have the same problem. The highest, noblest, most sublime philosophy, Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi, but it cannot be brought to practice. Can Hindus who really cherish their faith, this great and noble faith, carry the message, send the light of their message across the line of control? And I'm sure that if this light is flashed across the line of control, Pakistan will be converted. It's a far more effective way of dealing with Pakistan than all the charade of violence, threat, and aggression, and whatever we have seen so far. So it's very clear. The Prime Minister of India, Sri Narendra Damodar Das Modi, could not have taken any other path. And criticizing him, lambasting him for taking the only path that was available, I'm afraid is rather uncharitable. We have to become realistic. We have to realize that it is not in our power, it is not in our option to win wars left, right, and center at will, as the humor disposes us. We want to defeat that country, we go and defeat that country. We want to rattle the saber against this other country, we do that. It's all bungam. It doesn't happen like that. We cannot do that even with a small country, Bangladesh. You can't do it. We can't do that even with Sri Lanka, leave alone Pakistan. Let's be realistic. And at any rate, what is the merit in conquering a small country? What is the great heroism in beating to pulp a weaker strength? If India really wants to prove its macho image, please take on China. That's what we should do. After all, China has gobbled up quite a bit of our terrain. Pakistan has not done it. If we attach so much value to our land, the country that we have to immediately fight is not Pakistan. It is China. And true heroism will be proved only when, and this is internationally accepted principle, the heroism of a country is proved only against a country that is stronger, mightier than itself. I don't prove my valor or my heroism by beating up a 2-year-old child, do I? So all this is cheap. These are various forms of cowardice. I think Sri Narendra Modi has become a very mature a realistic, pragmatic leader, and he has arrived at certain conclusions. And the only thing that we can do as a nation is to endorse it, stand with him to the hilt, and proclaim that India is for peace and that nothing less than the creative affirmation of peacemaking will satisfy us.